Hi, Word Balloon listeners. I'm Margaret Larkin, who John has interviewed for this podcast. I lived in Japan and I love Japanese language, and I want to share a tip for learning it. The language in manga and anime, especially stories that take place in schools, is usually very casual, but Japan is a polite culture, so memorize polite phrases when you go to Japan. For instance, use desu ka when asking directions, such as eki wa doko desu ka, or use arimasu ka when asking biru wa arimasu ka, and don't say anata when you're talking to someone. You can find me on YouTube at Margaret Larkin. That's Margaret Larkin on YouTube.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. A quick show note before we get things started. I had a bit of a health scare on the 12th of June and put me in the hospital for a few days. I was released on June 16th. As a consequence, I'm recovering and doing great, but there is fluid around my lungs, which makes it difficult for me to sustain an interview conversation. And I just wanted to let everybody know that's why you're getting some reruns since the 12th. And everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. It just takes a bit for the medication to work and allow me to continue my conversations. The fact that I've been able to talk right now for almost a minute without coughing shows that things are improving fantastically and quickly. So until I do, I hope you enjoy some of these Best of Word Balloon interviews from the past 19 years. And again, I've got great plans coming up. There's great conversations on the way, hopefully before June wraps up, and certainly into July and August. So until then, thank you for your patience, enjoyment, and I hope you will take full advantage of the Word Balloon archive and also these great shows that I am promoting, bringing them back, like this episode today. So you'll listen to the commercials now, and then we'll get into an old conversation from Word Balloon. It's been called one of the top 3 real Comic-Cons in the USA. August 16th through the 18th. Discover Terrificon as it returns to the Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Uncasville, Connecticut. Terrificon showrunner Mitch Halleck has assembled his biggest and best comic creator guest list to date. Jim Lee, Scotty Young, Mark Waid, Adam Hughes, Jason Aaron, Charles Soule, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Brian Azzarello, alongside legends like Chris Claremont, Jerry Ordway, Howard Chaykin, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Louise and Walter Simonson, Klaus Janson, Lee Weeks, and dozens more. Terrificon also brings you the actors who have brought your favorite superheroes to life on the big and small screens. Michael Rooker, Charlie Cox, Star Trek actors Walter Koenig, Nana Visitor, Armin Shimmerman, Ethan Peck, Celia Rose Gooding, and many more. That's Terrificon, August 16th through the 18th. For information on tickets and guests, visit terrificon.com. Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Alex is a good friend of the show, and I am honored that he aligns himself with Word Balloon, and good Lord, we all love his iconic art, whether it's for DC, Marvel, things like Monty Python, the Monkees, David Bowie, so many other great licensed things, the Beatles. If you go to AlexRossArt.com, you will find great value for your dollar, whether you can spring for something like original cover art or pages to lithos and posters, every price point you can imagine, you will find something and a beautiful image from AlexRossArt.com. Word Balloon is also presented by my listeners, the League of Word Balloon listeners. The help that I get via contributions from Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. You hear the entertainment that I provide from Word Balloon every day, that I do a new episode. I am very fortunate to have the great creators of comics and pop culture willing to come on and give you great entertainment. I hope you will consider making an actual cash contribution via Patreon, even $1 a month. But really, if Word Balloon is worth the price of a comic book a month to you, it would be greatly appreciated if you slide that extra money you would put on an issue of a comic book to Word Balloon via Patreon. Patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you, League of Word Balloon listeners. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here with kind of a special report.
We all heard the news yesterday that Batman Caped Crusader, the new animated series that Matt Reeves, James Tucker, Bruce Timm, all involved with, all sounded great. Ed Brubaker, the story editor, we're all very excited. Now, it takes years with animation to get made, and HBO Max, which shocked us earlier this month with the news that they were shelving the Batgirl movie. Now it seems that they have also decided to not show various family and children's television that was in development. We got the word that several old seasons of Sesame Street were taken away so they could save money on licensing. This is all due to the fact that HBO Max and its parent company, Warner Discovery, is making a lot of financial moves to reduce their bottom line. We talked about it, Tom King and I talked about it last night on Word Balloon at the very beginning of our discussion, and that audio is going to be dropping right after this one. But I really wanted to go back and look at my most recent conversation with Ed Brubaker. Ed is the story editor on Batman Caped Crusader. First of all, I must stress, because it is easy to get lost in a headline and never read the facts, but unlike the Batgirl movie that seems to have been shelved and may never see the light of day, Batman Caped Crusader, while it was made for HBO Max, will be shopped around to other channels, other streaming platforms, the like. So I believe, obviously, Batman is certainly a strong enough franchise, and with the kind of talent that's behind it from the animation side, Bruce Timm and James Tucker, Matt Reeves, who obviously had great success with the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, and Brubaker, Greg Rucka, a junior writer on this, one of the script writers, and the whole staff that he assembled. Man, it sounded great. And we spent a long time talking about it on Word Balloon in my last conversation with Brubaker. But I wanted to put this out to underline the various changes that are happening in streaming media, and also a glimpse of what the show will look like, again, from at least a writing and script standpoint. And Ed is the perfect person to talk about this stuff, because he's recently made television for Amazon and HBO, and now making this animated show for Warner Brothers Discovery. Again, it's not canceled. It's just probably going to wind up somewhere else, but produced by Warner Brothers Discovery. That said, it really represents another sea change. The ground, folks, and I've said this a million times, of entertainment business is changing under our feet. Now it seems almost month to month. And what was the norm for about the last 20 years has now changed again. And Warner Brothers' move and HBO Max's moves of deciding, no, we're not going to show these on our channel, but we will license them to other channels, is almost a return of the way business used to be held. And again, Ed is the right guy to talk about this, and that's why I wanted to include bringing this part of the conversation back. And it's a good 20 minutes or so about this very subject, starting with just where streaming is now, or I should say was until these moves by Warner Brothers Discovery. Is this a harbinger for Amazon or some of the other streamers to respond in kind? I'm not sure. You know, John Hickman, I love quoting him. He said a lot of comic books are sitting on the same shelf at your comic store for different reasons. And I think the production and distribution of television is now in that same category. So nobody knows what the real master plan of Warner Discovery is, and we won't know until we start seeing some of the new things that are greenlit from the new regime. But to remind us of what Batman Caped Crusader is about, and also a look at what's happening, the way television works in the 21st century, I wanted to represent this part of my conversation with Ed Brubaker. So without further ado, and I've blabbed enough, here it is now on Word Balloon.
I've been outspoken about this before, but I'm pretty against like any subscription sites, because I think like I don't subscribe to, other than Netflix, which is just like, when I got Netflix, it was a way to just get DVDs mailed to you.
Sure.
and I lived in the country, but like the most subscription sites, it's like the creators of the stuff get nothing, or either they get zero or they get pennies. That's why you see like even Neil Young and Taylor Swift and all these people like taking their stuff off of things. I guess they're doing that for political reasons as well. But I think, didn't Taylor Swift remove all her stuff from one
Spotify?
of those? Yeah, Spotify, like years ago, over like how little they were paying people.
There was something to that effect, again, showing my age. I do remember hearing this.
Yeah, it was probably like 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So quick. But that's
she remade a couple albums.
Yeah, she's been remaking,
so she would have more
music,
control over her royalties and everything. Yeah.
I mean, I will confess that, a Taylor Swift song could be driving a car that ran me over and I wouldn't recognize the song, but
I'm with you.
But I have read the news that she's done this.
Yes, I would.
And I respect her, for that as a creator.
You're killing.
But I also think that the subscription sites are the result of things like Napster and all of that stuff. It was like, okay, well, let's still do this, but let's do it so that the companies still get the money, but the creators don't.
Right.
I look at a lot of the last 20 years, the digital technology stuff as just sort of a long, slow circle that we've been driven in to get rid of royalties.
I understand.
Look at as I work for streaming platforms, that have done multiple times now. But there's no way that as someone in the Writers Guild, I don't look at the streaming platforms as like, okay, so we're doing the exact same job we were doing before. It's just that there's no such thing as residuals anymore. It's like basically residuals are just a flat fee that you get, as opposed to, 10 years ago, if I was working on a show for USA or whatever, every time they reran an episode, I would get almost the full payment that I got to write it the first time.
Wow.
So you could see like some of these TV guys who worked on big shows, like if you were any of the writers of Law and Order for any key seasons, you're just making out like a bandit.
Oh my God. Yeah, sure.
Like Dick Wolf is the most successful person in like the history of TV, I think. And, now it's like, it's all about, they need enough content to keep subscribers subscribing. And Netflix has, clearly lost a bunch of subscribers in the last year or so because everyone's taken their stuff back. Like Marvel took all their shows and movies.
Right.
They don't have
Warner Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. The Office is over on Peacock and they're putting out like the fucking producer's cuts, which are like 15 minutes longer.
Yep.
Now. Yep. So it's like, oh, well, you got to rewatch The Office if you want to see all this extra stuff. Like Paramount has Star Trek, like everybody has all this stuff that people used to go to Netflix to watch.
That's right.
So Netflix is in an interesting place. I don't think Netflix is in trouble the way everyone is acting like they're, they cut some stuff and, they had like a down quarter. I don't think they're going to be like, I don't think they're really in trouble as far as the market goes. I'm sure they're fine. I know a bunch of people working on stuff for Netflix that's, nobody there seems to be worrying about their job.
Yeah.
I had a friend who just signed an overall deal at Netflix like a week ago or something. So they're still throwing a lot of money around. But yeah, it's like, if you look at it another way, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, everybody had cable and you got the internet usually through your cable provider. And, you had to buy these cable packages to get the stuff you wanted. You had to get like 50 channels you didn't want.
Oh, 100%. It's ridiculous.
And you were paying for all of that stuff. Yep. But now we're at this place where, you can buy that bundle through Hulu if you want the live TV bundle to get like a channel or whatever, which is like a fortune. And but otherwise you like just go to like Amazon or Apple or whatever, and you just subscribe to the stuff that you want to watch now instead. So we've kind of just come around, and now AT&T provides your internet instead of your cable, and it's like, it's just one big circle back around to the, 5 companies owning everything and figuring out a way so that they can own more of it, like
I agree.
Like none of them will buy, or very, very few of them will actually buy anything that's not produced in-house anymore.
Right.
Like these networks used to all buy from production companies,
right?
And now, and that's how Larry David is like the richest man in the world, because of they got a big piece of Seinfeld that they wouldn't get today. There'd be no
absolutely
rules. It would be like, yeah, it's the most watched thing, and if you want to sign an overall deal with us, then great. If you don't, then good luck to you.
Right. No, you're right about that. God, Drew Carey was on ABC, Disney, and it was made by Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
For example.
It used to be, that used to be the way when I first broke into writing TV pilots. It was like you'd go to the studio. Like I went to Fox Studios, and then we took our show to every network.
Sure.
I think we sold it to we did sell it to Fox, but then one time I had a show at Fox from Fox Studio that I sold to like NBC or something, and they didn't make it, but it was like it was frequent. And over the course of the last few years, I think that the pandemic really ramped up that move to that vertical integration move, as they call it.
Agreed. Absolutely.
So it's been kind of an interesting time as like a media watcher.
Oh God, yes, dude. I've told you the same thing. I'm a broadcast nerd, and it fascinates me. I mean, and just even being in one of the smaller divisions of radio and stuff. No, all the changes that are happening on every broadcast and digital arena is fascinating. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's all good. Like,
no, it's not.
I'm watching to see where it ends up, but at the same time, I'm like, it's good that they're making a lot of stuff now. It's good that it's somewhat easier to get a TV show made than it used to be, and that you have much less levels of, depending on what you're working on, you have much less levels of like executive interference, because there's a lot of like, hey, we need content.
Right. Right.
But, at the same time, as a creator, it's kind of like, but, Image is still, I guess Dark Horse has changed their deal recently, and some other publishers are changing their deals to be more creator friendly. But like a couple of years ago, I was thinking, shit, pretty soon Image might be the only place left where, in the comics world, where you can publish stuff and own all of it, including your media rights.
Right. No, you're right about it. And it is interesting.
So many people are, so many of these small publishers just are thinking in terms of media rights.
That's true. And it's, you're right about that. And also it is interesting, the newer imprints or the new publishers, that have popped up in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them are actually funded by these sort of Hollywood companies, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
So a lot of them actually have had like that kind of like investment fund people who are like, hey, and we'll make TV shows out of it too, which is great if you can get it made,
Sure. But we want creators to be treated fairly, and exactly. And right down to the teleplay writers as much as the comic creators and stuff. So I know. Yeah, well, exactly. With that in mind, tell me about working back at DC and Warner's, and and working on the Batman stuff now for the new animated series.
All I can say is Bruce Wayne is Batman.
I like him.
Maybe you've heard of a little character named Batman. It's been really great. It's been it's been like 6 months already.
Wow.
Maybe more, a little bit more than 6 months. We're almost done. We're just working on the scripts for the last couple episodes right now for the season, and then we start voice recording very soon. So Bruce and James have been casting for the last couple months, which has been a trip.
Tell me about working with those guys. I like them both. Tim and James Tucker. They're terrific guys.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that's why I took the job, was to work with those guys. I think I told you I reached out to Bruce just as like hey, if you need a freelancer, keep me in mind. This has always been kind of a bucket list thing for me. And then he ended up calling me up and offering me the head writer job, which, I didn't necessarily I was kind of like, I had to debate it a while, before I was like, all right, I guess I'll do it. And then it turned out it wasn't as easy as me just saying I'll do it. I had to like interview with a bunch of people because it's a huge fucking deal. I was just like, Bruce offered me the job. But yeah, Bruce actually had to jump through a lot of hoops to make sure I got the job. It's great. I love those guys. Bruce is if you've met him before, you know who he is. He's we were friends, for years before I realized he actually liked me at all. so it's been fun. It's also fun because Bruce, is such a powerful person in that side of the industry. I think some of it is driven by all the compromises that they had to make on the original version, where they weren't allowed to show as much violence, and not that the show is going to be like super violent or bloody or anything like that. It's a PG show, so it's going to be like adults can watch it with their kids, and I think it'll be good for everybody. It's more adult than what they did before. It's very much like a new take on Batman that feels a little bit more period specific to like the late 40s, early 50s era. And we're sticking with that.
That's great.
It's fun too, because you get to, throw in little bits of period slang here and there. But yeah, it's been great. It's interesting. I'm glad that I did it because I had spent a couple years, developing stuff that didn't end up moving forward. And I was starting to, to just feel a little bit like depressed about the Hollywood side of my career, just thinking that, because so much of what you do in Hollywood on film or TV is just like wasted effort.
Yes, doesn't get made.
Yeah, or even when you're working on a show, sometimes you can, I feel like there was a lot of wasted effort, on Too Old to Die Young, because of, Refn's producing style, the way he just, it's almost like he looks at the script as a guidepost. More than a script. Like there's definitely episodes where I'm like, okay, he followed the script for like half of this episode.
Interesting.
But there was, like after 3 years of working on it, there was a lot of frustrations on my part about, how much time and effort I put in compared to, what I got out of it in a way, because, like Amazon was like, not a huge fan of the show, obviously, and kind of buried it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I don't have any, no one who worked on the show even works at Amazon anymore. So it's like, I don't have any animosity towards anyone there, but it's like, a lot of TV jobs are a lot of hours of talking about stuff instead of doing stuff, even when you're actually getting stuff produced. So that's what's been great about this is like Bruce and James have been, producing these things for 30 years.
Literally. Yes.
And, there was never this idea of like, oh, what we want isn't what's going to happen. Like we're making the show that they pitched to me and that we helped, build. But they really, they know their shit. They don't want to waste time. Like, our writing room days would be like, 2 or 3 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon. And we went through that for like a month or so. And then we only met for like, a couple days a week because everybody was working on outlines and scripts already. So it was like, we moved pretty fast to like build this whole structure for the season.
Well,
and,
I
saw that was like, oh, this is a way that's actually possible to do things. And, my job as the head writer is, when people turn in like an outline or a script, I can either give them a bunch of notes depending on, what shape it's in or not, or I can, if it's pretty close, I can just kind of do a quick polish on it myself and then turn it into Bruce. And then Bruce always has notes, and Bruce's notes are hilarious because Bruce makes me look high tech. Bruce actually prints out a PDF of the script and goes through with like a red pen and like, cross out stuff and write in like change it to this or that, and oftentimes he'll draw little pictures trying to visualize how the scene's going to come together. And so it's like when you get your notes back from him, you're like, oh wow, this is like almost like looking at storyboards sometimes.
That's great.
Yeah, it's so much fun to like be behind the scenes on that stuff. And we're getting, I think we're getting animation samples from people pretty soon for various studios that are trying out for the job. So yeah, we'll be going into production in the next couple of months.
That's exciting.
For the first episodes. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, animation takes forever, so it's not like it's going to be out this year. But yeah, it's I get to see all of this like every step of the way, like the storyboards and the animatics and all of that stuff. So I'm really excited for the first voice record session.
Will you be there, or will you use Skype in
Zoom.
or whatever?
It's all virtual. Everything's been virtual.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be there for part of it. I don't want to spend all day like watching people read the same dialogue over and over again. I got too much work to do on the show.
No, I get, sure.
But I'll be there for some of that stuff for sure. And I've been involved like every step of the way through, from Bruce and James and someone else, some other writer they were working with at the time, came up with like the whole pitch for the show like several years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago initially. And we sort of loosely followed the original pitch that they wanted to do, and kind of because we had a whole writer's room full of people, we built off of that and built like a new thing. So I think people are going to be really blown away by the show. Like I think it'll remind them a lot of the other show, but also shock them in ways that, in the ways that it's different than the other show.
Well, it's good to hear. And that the network in Warner Brothers and the like, or whatever, the platform understands. I think they've grown up just as much as James and Bruce have in terms of, that they recognize that it is a more sophisticated audience. They don't have to think of Saturday morning or even weekday afternoons like the original models were.
What they've told us, I can't remember what they call it, like crossover viewing or something like that.
Okay.
There's some kind of phrase they've used a few times to keep in mind, but yeah, it's they've got R-rated cartoons.
Right.
Like that Harley cartoon is a fully R-rated cartoon.
Absolutely. And that was
where she's like murdering people and stuff.
And the jokes are pretty rough too.
Yeah, the jokes are exactly. And I was like, holy shit, they're getting away with a lot of stuff we're not going to be able to get away with, obviously, because we're doing something that's PG. But also, like, they're really, other than the old Batman cartoons, which it's funny, my friend Hallie Gross is working on the show, and she basically like lives with her boyfriend and his kids now. And when they found out she was going to be working on the show, they wanted to see the old episodes, and now they're completely addicted to them. And it's like a 7 and 11-year-old kid, and they're just totally addicted to these cartoons. It's like the only thing that'll make them put down their phones is to watch these old Batman cartoons, which I'm just like amazed by.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And it was, I got to bring in Greg Rucka, and, he actually wrote episode 2.
Oh, that's so great.
Which is like, it's like the first Renee Montoya episode. So that was a lot of fun. And at the same time as we were working on that, we were proofing the Gotham Central omnibus thing for DC, because I got them to make a bunch of art fixes and lettering fixes throughout that for the first time, because I just happened to be talking to Marie and she mentioned it, and I said, oh, hey, is there any way I could, proof that and maybe we could make some changes? And she's like, yeah, I don't see why not. And I was just thinking, because for 10 years, everybody told me there was no way we could do it. Right. I was like, absolutely, we can do it. And so we put out, me and Greg and Michael all went through the book and like proofed it together. I know Greg was like working on his script at the same time, and I was working on, everybody's scripts and outlines at the same time as I was basically rereading Gotham Central for the first time in like 15 years. And
so great.
yeah, I got to say that book was ahead of its time.
Yes, it was.
Like, I can see why it's still a big thing for DC in some ways.
And but Michael's art,
funny
everything,
because, man. Yeah, it's funny because, you know, I mean, the Batman cartoon is nothing like Gotham Central, but there's moments here and there where I'm like, this is a Gotham Central moment. Like, there's That's definitely great. My first episode that I'm officially the writer of is episode 4. And it's very much like a Gotham Central episode in my mind. I'm like, there's more stuff about the cops than there is about Batman in this one.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's a very Gordon centric episode. So
very exciting. It's great to hear that again, and it sounds like you're comfortable in this animated 20-minute or whatever it is.
It's been a bit of a learning curve. The scripts are. I thought the scripts would end up having to be shorter than they have to be, but the scripts are 30 to 34 pages or so.
Okay,
so you can it's not that, it's like 10 or 15 pages shorter than like an hour-long episode script. But they, so much of what you're doing is describing action that's going to take place over the course of 10 seconds or something.
Sure.
But yeah, it's been kind of a blast. Like, I never imagined I would go back to any kind of superhero related stuff unless like Marvel hired me to write a Winter Soldier miniseries for Sebastian or something.
Sure.
Which they haven't done, just in case anyone thinks that was a clue that I've been hired to write a Winter Soldier miniseries. That hasn't happened.
But it's a good idea. Put it in the evening.
I probably wouldn't say no. But yeah, like, I never imagined I'd go back to doing any of that stuff. And then this came along and it's actually been a lot of fun. And, at the same time as having to go back and reread all the Gotham Centrals, it kind of got me into the groove of it. I was like, oh yeah, that was a really great time. And, in our career when we were all just kind of starting out and trying to push against the boundaries of what these comics could be.
A final word. I just want to thank Ed for his candor, and honestly, I can say that about a lot of my guests, both recent and in the past. And it's why when a news story hits like this, I can go back to the Word Balloon archives and find a chunk that is still relevant. Now, this conversation with Ed took place at the end of May, so it's really not that old. But I didn't feel it necessary to do an entire reprint of the episode, but I did want to point out this section because, again, I think it speaks to these current issues that we're seeing, not only with DC, but also Marvel, everybody that's involved with intellectual property and streaming TV, movies, and the choices that are being made today. And I'm very fortunate that Word Balloon provides that kind of platform for creators that are in the game and are speaking their mind and making these observations. And you'll forgive me because this also came up during Tom's interview last night on YouTube. I brought it up. There are certain podcasters that kind of wring their hands about, I really wish sponsors weren't involved in comic book podcasting. I'm sorry, that's a crock of shit. I certainly hope that you think, as a listener, that what I bring to Word Balloon every episode is worth hearing. There's nothing wrong with your classic comic book podcast of who would win against who against a battle, the changes in a character, an examination of the history of a character. All that stuff is fair game, and I delve into it in Word Balloon from time to time. But again, as someone that works in the media and has been working in the media literally since the mid-1980s at a very small market radio station in Bloomington, Illinois, to my 30 years in Chicago broadcasting, to my podcasting today, I'm very interested in what's happening. I know you are too. If you weren't, there wouldn't be so many articles or eruptions of social media when shocking announcements are made and we don't understand what's going on. So it's really important to hear from these people. I really think that's the value of Word Balloon. And yes, I do think that it is content that is worthy of sponsor participation and listener participation. As always, patrons from Patreon for Word Balloon, thank you very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated. But yeah, I think we're making something here that goes beyond, well, who would win in a fight? Thor against the Thing, or Superman against, I don't know, you name it, Icon or whatever. I just think this stuff is interesting, and it's an area of the business that, beyond a few blogging sort of websites, doesn't get discussed enough. That's why I'm really glad Word Balloon is here. That's why I'm glad you're listening. So here's the laundry list of sponsors to wrap up the show. But as always, thank you for your attention and support. A full conversation with Tom King is coming up in just a couple hours, alongside this episode presenting Ed Brubaker and his thoughts on Batman Caped Crusader. This portion of Word Balloon is brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Aftershock has it going on in August. In fact, a brand new series debuts in August, The Vineyard, from Brian Hawkins and Sammy Kivelä. This is a very cool supernatural murder kind of comic book that involves supernatural sacrifice and killing, all in the backdrop of a vineyard. Pretty crazy stuff. As they say, what wine goes best with murder? You'll find out in The Vineyard this month from Aftershock Comics. Also from Aftershock, we see the release of Baby Teeth Year 2, Cradle and Grave, the hardcover from Donny Cates and Gary Brown. The successful series continues in hardback, and it's available this month. Also, Volume 2 of Maniac in New York, The Bronx is Burning, another fantastic story from Elliot Callan and Andrea Muti. Really great stuff. The Bronx is Burning, Maniac of New York, Volume 2. Don't forget, for more details on this and other Aftershock creations, go to their website. You will find full story details, preview pages of art, and the diamond codes how to order these books and more at AftershockComics.com. This episode of Word Balloon is brought to you by AlexRossArt.com. Coming up in the later part of the summer or early fall, from Abrams and Marvel, it's Fantastic Four Full Circle, written and illustrated by Alex Ross. It's a rainy night in Manhattan. Not a creature is stirring except for the Thing, Ben Grimm. When an intruder suddenly appears inside the Baxter Building, the Fantastic Four find themselves surrounded by a swarm of invading parasites. These creatures, composed of negative energy, come to Earth using a human host as a delivery system, but why? The Fantastic Four has no choice but to journey into the negative zone. Great story, great creator, as you know, Alex Ross. Really excited for this project. He's been working on it for a really long time. And, man, you are in for some spectacular images. And if you want to get a preview for this, all you need to do is go to Alex's website, AlexRossArt.com. It's there also, as always, amazing paintings, sketches, lithographs, posters, every price point, epic images. You know the name. Check it out, AlexRossArt.com. Word Balloon is brought to you by my listeners. You are the sponsors of Word Balloon, the League of Word Balloon listeners, via subscriptions monthly to Patreon, patreon.com/wordballoon. Hey, couldn't do it without you, honestly, League. I truly appreciate your support. I appreciate your devotion, your listenership, and your patronage, honestly. You know, if you can even spare $1 a month, it's greatly appreciated. It helps me make these terrific shows, go to conventions where I'm not sponsored, and, keep networking and making interesting programming, hopefully for you to enjoy every month here on Word Balloon. But I couldn't do it without you. Thank you very much, League of Word Balloon listeners. Again, if you want to subscribe to Word Balloon, for as little as $1 a month, all you need to do is go to patreon.com/wordballoon, WORDBALLOON. And again, I really appreciate your patronage, subscription, and attention, all of you, the League of Word Balloon listeners. Until next time, thanks a lot for listening. Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2022. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.